الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So this is our first lesson, moving from, we finished last week, we finished Usool Al-Hadith fi Usool Al-Hadith. Yes? Al-Hadith fi Usool Al-Hadith. We will revisit some of that in this science as well, because part of it, of this science, is looking at the proofs, the adillah of the Sharia. And from the adillah of the Sharia, or the evidences of the Sharia, are the book and the Sunnah. So the Hadith are part of the evidences of the Sharia. So we will go over a lot of things that we covered in Usool Al-Hadith again in this, but less, not in as much depth. So you will understand it quicker because we've already covered it once we come to that point, inshallah. Anyway, this subject is called Usool Al-Fiqh. We have fiqh, we have Usool Al-Fiqh, and we have Qawaid Al-Fiqhiyya. These are three separate sciences. Three separate sciences. Everybody knows fiqh, yes? Yeah. What is fiqh? You know it, but what is it? In the language, that's what it means, understanding. Yes, I'm not talking about linguistically. I'm talking about the science of fiqh. What is it?
It's a ruling.
The exact rulings on different issues. Yes, based upon their proofs. Yes, and we study that normally based upon a madhab. Yes, that's the classical way of studying fiqh, is through a madhab, and then you branch out from there after you've studied it via madhab, and you can also study it via hadith, and you can also study it via Quran. Yes, the ayat al-ahkam, the ahadith al-ahkam, and then there are the mutun al-fiqhiyya. These are the three ways that one can study fiqh. Then we have qawaid al-fiqhiyya. What are qawaid al-fiqhiyya? They're not usul principles. They're totally different from usul. They are the fiqh maximums, fiqh rules. The maximums, they're rules basically. That fiqh, the rulings of fiqh come under, meaning they make it easier for you to understand similarities in rulings based upon principles. So, al-maqasid, al-umur bi-maqasidiha. How do I translate that? Al-umur, the matters are based upon the intent. Many different things of fiqh come under that principle. Yes? La darar wa la dirar. There is no harming or being harmed. Many different rulings of fiqh come under this principle. Okay? And then we have Usool Al-Fiqh, which is a different science. All of them have the same word in their fiqh, but they're all separate. Okay? Usool Al-Fiqh looks at the evidences of the Sharia and doesn't look at rulings. The purpose of Usool Al-Fiqh is to study the evidences for fiqh, not to deal with any rulings, but to deal with how to derive rulings using the evidences. How to derive the how. It has no connection to fiqh, except that fiqh is built upon it. Okay? The only connection it has to fiqh is built upon it. Because for us to derive rulings, for any matter of fiqh, we need the evidence. Yes? The evidence is the Quran and the Sunnah, or ijma' or qiyas, whatever. How do we understand the ayat, and how do we understand the hadith, and how do we understand the ijma', and how do we do qiyas, is usul al-fiqh. How do we do all of that? What are the rules that we need? What are the tools that we need to be able to do that? Okay? This is Usool Al-Fiqh. Usool Al-Fiqh tells us how to understand the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger. How to understand it. Not that we're deriving any halal, haram or anything from it. Just how to understand. What Allah meant by what He said. and what the Prophet ﷺ meant by what he said. This is what Usool Al-Fiqh gives us. From Usool Al-Fiqh we bring out the rulings of fiqh. Within Usool Al-Fiqh we use fiqh as examples. Yes? Only as examples. So, for example, we might be talking about issue of wajib, and to give you an example of wajib, I will give you a ruling in the Sharia or in fiqh to give you an example of what wajib is. Yes? But I don't really care about the ruling. I'm only giving you as an example. Yeah? Because Usool Al-Fiqh has nothing to do with fiqh. Fiqh is not important to Usool Al-Fiqh. The scholar of fiqh is in need of Usool Al-Fiqh, because he can't derive the rulings and come up with the halal and haram without Usool Al-Fiqh. But the Usuli doesn't care about the fiqh. It's nothing to do with him. Somebody can be an Usuli, a scholar of Usul, and not know that it's possible, not know the ABCs of fiqh. Because it's not his field. And somebody could be a faqih, but still his usul is not that strong. They can be a faqih, but he's not going to be a very good faqih. He'll be more of a faqih who has learnt the madhab, whatever madhab he is, and follows it. If you ask him about the madhab, whatever madhab he's following, he can give you the ruling on every issue in that madhab. But he won't be able to weigh up between the different madhab. Yes? For that you need Usool Al-Fiqh. Okay? What we're using for our study is the poem of Al-Waraqat. Nuzum Al-Waraqat. The poem of Waraqat. Waraqat is a book written, the primer book written by, who is it written by? Imam Al-Haramain. Don't forget his title. Don't forget his title. Imam Al-Haramain. Al-Jawaini. Okay, Al-Jawaini wrote Al-Waraqat. Why was he known for Imam Al-Haramain? We mentioned that just earlier. It's not Haramain, the two harams. He was chosen by the people to lead the prayers in the Haramain when he came from, he's from Naysapur, which is, I think, Russian states, somewhere around there, or Iran, that area. Okay, he came from there and came to Mecca and Medina, and because the people knew of his knowledge, and he came and gave lessons in the Haramain, and he gave fatawa, the people said, "You are the Imam, lead us in prayer. If you are the one we're referring back to for fatawa and for ilm and everything, then you are most deserving of leading us in prayer." So he led them in prayer in the two harams, and that became his title, Imam Al-Haramain. And no one else has been given that title, Imam Al-Haramain. Even though in Aqidah he was Ash'ari, or from the Imams of the Ash'ari. Yeah, you know the Ash'ari? They oppose Ahl Sunnah. They're from the closest of groups to Ahl Sunnah. They are the closest of groups to Ahl Sunnah, but they oppose Ahl Sunnah in many issues. In every issue, basically. In every issue, except for the issue of the companions and the Imamah after the Khilafah. In these two issues, they agree with Ahl Sunnah completely. In every other issue, they oppose Ahl Sunnah, they agree with Ahl Sunnah in the apparent, in general, and they oppose them in specific details. Okay? So, for example, with regards to Allah's names and attributes, they follow the madhab of the Salaf in general. In general, they follow the madhab of the Salaf, meaning they affirm what Allah has affirmed. And they negate what Allah has negated. And they affirm what the Prophet ﷺ affirmed, and they negate what the Prophet ﷺ negated. Yes? That is the madhab of the Salaf in general. But in specific, they only affirm 7 attributes of Allah. They affirm all of the names of Allah, and they only affirm 7 attributes of Allah. And the other attributes, they affirm them, but in a way of interpreting them out, giving them different meanings. Okay? So, in general, they agree with Ahl Sunnah, but in specific, they will go against the madhab of Ahl Sunnah. Who? Imam Al-Jawaini. The book will tell us. Gone 400 and something. Let me find his name. He does mention him somewhere. He's Abu al-Ma'ali Abdul Malik ibn Abdullah ibn Yusuf Al-Jawaini An-Naysaburi. He was born in 419 and died in 478. Okay. He stayed in Mecca and Medina for 4 years teaching and giving fatwa, and they made him the Imam. It's not like today, as I mentioned. It's not like today. I'm going to get told off for saying this. Where the king or the ruler chooses the Imams. Yes? And no one can lead the prayer but those Imams. Yes? There could be hundreds of people behind the Imam who are more knowledgeable or more befitting to lead the prayer. Okay? But they're not allowed to lead the prayer because the ruler, the person in charge, is not allowing it. This was not the situation in the past. He was at the time of the Abbasids or the Umayyads, or between, I think, at the time of the Abbasids. He was allowed to lead the prayer because he was the Imam. And he was most knowledgeable of those people there. So they put him forward to be the Imam. They didn't care whether the ruler allowed it or didn't allow it. He was the Imam. We're taking our deen from this man. He's more befitting to lead us in our prayer. Yes? This is not the situation now. Now, even like when Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, generally when they came and prayed in the harams, they would not be allowed to be the Imam. They would pray behind the Imam, whoever the Imam was. On one or two situations, on one or two, what's the word? Occasions, that's the word I'm looking for, a word I can't find it. Occasions, Ibn Baz did lead the prayer because the Imam saw him and grabbed him and put him forward in the haram. Ibn Baz did lead the prayer, and you can hardly hear how he's reciting because he had very little teeth. Rahimahullah. But you could tell the khushu of the Ibn Baz. It's on YouTube somewhere, of him leading the prayer. So, anyway, the situations have changed now. Okay. Yes. Bidayatul. Is that Hanbali Matan? I don't know it. Okay, Ba'li. Yeah, I know Ba'li. Yes. If the Imam, if he's appointed, then yes, that is. But generally, the Salaf didn't always stick to that. That is the ruling. Yes, from a fiqhi point of view, that is the ruling. That if the Imam, if the ruler appoints someone, then he is given precedence over the rest, and that's what all the books of fiqh say. But the Salaf didn't always do that. The Salaf didn't always do that. Sometimes they would put somebody else. Okay. Then the book that we're going through is somebody came 400 years later, Al-Imrati, his name, Amriti or something like that his name is, who came, is 900 and something, who came and then turned this book into a poem. Turned the book into a poem. Why into a poem? Why turn the book into a poem? Easier to memorize, easier also to understand. Easier, quicker to understand. Taking all those words and shortening them down to a very understandable few words. That was the reason. Especially for the Arabs, they can memorize the poems very quickly. Whereas memorizing text is much more difficult. I don't know if that's the same for non-Arabs. I don't know if that's the same for non-Arabs. What's easier, for memorizing a text or memorizing poems? I find poems harder for some reason. I find it easier to memorize the text than to memorize the poem. Poems go out of my mind. But for the Arabs, maybe it's a Western thing, perhaps. Because even in Pakistan or whatever, they memorize poetry. English doesn't have that poetry where people were into it. No, they were more into text. So perhaps that's the reason. Allah knows best. So we're studying the poem of the text. So the original is Al-Waraqat. We're studying the poem which is Nuzum Al-Waraqat, the poem of Waraqat. Okay, what should be studied first? First of all, okay, the sharh of the poem is the sharh of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen. It's the simplest sharh, straightforward, and it's only 200 and something pages, so hopefully we can get through it quickly. Okay? That's why I'm using his sharh. And he, mashallah, the Shaykh made everything very easy and simplified. And he was a very good teacher, and this is his field, Usool Al-Fiqh and Fiqh. Okay? So he says, Ibn Uthaymeen says, rahimahullah, that what should we study first? Should we study fiqh first or Usool Al-Fiqh first? Which one should we give precedence over? So he says, اختلف العلماء. He doesn't say that, I'm saying. He says there's two opinions. Some say that you should study usul because it's the foundation of fiqh. Yes? So it gives you the building blocks upon which you can build fiqh. Yes? Okay. Others say no. You should study fiqh because you can study fiqh without knowing usul. And you need fiqh in your daily life. Yes? You need to know how to make wudu. First you need to know what water is pure. Yes? To make wudu. Yes? Then you need to know how to make wudu. And you need to know all these other rulings. Before you know usul al-fiqh. Yes? Before you know usul al-fiqh, you need to know this for your daily life. Yes? Therefore, usul al-fiqh is given precedence over usul al-fiqh. And the Shaykh says that seems to be the more correct opinion. Because you need fiqh in your general ibadah of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes? And usul al-fiqh is fard kifaya. Some people know it, that's okay. But these parts of fiqh are obligatory, fard ayn upon you. How to make wudu is fard ayn upon you. You need to know how to make wudu. It's not sufficient if some of us know how to make wudu, others don't have to make wudu. Huh? Same as the prayer. How to pray. Perhaps you don't need to know what are the pillars of the prayer, what are the wajibat of the prayer, what are the sunnahs of the prayer. Maybe you don't need to know these details, but you need to know how is my prayer valid and how is it not valid. Yes? And that is fiqh. That's not usul al-fiqh. And then the Shaykh says, and on top of that, this is the way it was from the time of the Salaf. People used to learn fiqh before they learnt usul. They would learn fiqh before they learnt usul. And even the books of fiqh predate the books of usul predate. Especially the ahadith al-ahkam predate the books of usul. Okay. So who are we to change? Who are we to change things that have been the way of the Salaf from the beginning? To say now, stop studying fiqh, everybody come and study usul. Once you've learned your usul, then only then open the book of fiqh. Until then, no. That's not what we should do, and that's not what was done. I'm sure there are people who say that nowadays. I'm sure there are. And you can say you're going against the madhab of the Salaf. You're going against our whole history. Okay. So then the Shaykh starts in the book. So he says the first couplet, the poems are made up of couplets. Yes? So he mentions the first couplet, قال الفقير الشرف الأمريطي, I have to make the big page bigger, أمريطي ذو العجز والتقصير والتفريط. Okay? قال الفقير الشرف الأمريطي ذو العجز والتقصير والتفريط. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Yes? All he's saying, قال الفقير الشرف. The الفقير الشرف, this is his title. Okay? الفقير الشرف. He's giving himself the title الفقير الشرف. الفقير means to be poor, yes? Al-Sharaf, honor. This is just his title, Faqir al-Sharaf. That he has very little honor. Faqir al-Sharaf. Or he is in need of Sharaf, perhaps. Maybe that's better. Okay? But this is just a title. It's not actually literal. Like we call Shaykh al-Islam. Yes? It's just a title. Or Imad ad-Din, the pillar of the religion. Doesn't mean he actually was a pillar. Just titles. Then he says, Al-Imriti is his, where he's from, basically. Or his either where he's from or his lineage. The Shaykh doesn't actually mention Al-Imriti. Then the second part of the couplet is Dhul Ajzi wa Taqsiri wa Tafriti. Al-Ajzu huwa Adam al-Qudra. Al-Ajz is inability, in not having power, not able to do things. That's Al-Ajz. We said Allah la yu'jizuhu shay. Nothing is impossible for Allah. Nothing is outside of Allah's capability. Yeah? Here he's saying, I am Al-Ajiz. I am incapable. Dhul Ajzi. I don't have the ability. وَالتَّقْصِيرُ هُوَ عَدَمُ الْإِكْمَالِ. It is not being complete, not being perfect, being deficient. وَالتَّقْصِيرُ وَالتَّفْرِيطُ هُوَ الْإِهْمَالِ فِيمَا يَجِبُ. It's not, what's a good word for ihmal? It's neglecting that which is obligatory, that which you must have. So he's saying, I say this, and all of this which can proceed, but know that I'm not truly worthy of all of what I'm going to say. I am incapable, I'm not at that level. I'm deficient in the words that I'm going to use, and I will miss things. I will neglect that which is obligatory for you to know. But knowing that, still read my poem. Take benefit from it. This is from, why would somebody say this? From humbleness. From humbleness. Ash-Shatibi, Shatibi, when he wrote his poem on Qira'at. Yes? He wrote one of the best poems you would ever get on Qira'at, where he put all the 7 Qira'at together in his poem. Hirz al-Amani. The scholars say that no one came with a poem like his poem, with the meanings that he came up with. In the beginning of it, he says, please overlook my useless poem. Or the poem that has so useless words. Out of his humbleness. To this day, his poem is memorized. His poem is memorized all over the world. Perhaps this is out of his humbleness that Allah wrote acceptance. Yes? There have been many ulama who wrote many different things, but not all of them are remembered. And not all of them, their works are memorized or even looked at. Only those who Allah accepted and wrote acceptance in this world and in the akhirah, their works are continuously read over. And their names are mentioned, and we ask Allah's mercy for them. Okay. Then he says, Amriti, difficult word. Amriti. He says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi qad adhara ilm al-usul lil-wara wa ashhara. Okay? Alhamd. Alhamdulillah. What does it mean? Praise be to Allah Azza wa Jal. That's it? Why? Why? Whatever speech you start, you should praise Allah Azza wa Jal with it. When do we start with Bismillah? When do we start with Alhamdulillah? Or can we combine both of them? We can combine both of them. Generally it wasn't done. But yes, it is allowed, of course. But when do you normally start with Bismillah? When something's being written. In writing, you start with Bismillah. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is what he would do. In speech, you start with Alhamdulillah. You don't generally start with Bismillah. In the khutbah, the Imam doesn't stand up and say Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Alhamdulillah, does he? Starts with Alhamdulillah or Inna Alhamdulillah, something like that. So in speeches, you start generally with Alhamdulillah. What does Alhamdulillah mean? It means praising Allah. All praise is for Allah. Why? Because of His perfection. We are mentioning the perfection of Allah Azza wa Jal. And because of that perfection, we praise Him. And He is deserving of all praise. And that praise that we give Him is a praise full of love. And full of awe of Him. And full of honor to Him. This is Alhamd. Without love and ta'zeem, this is not Hamd. Yes? Without love and ta'zeem, without loving the one you're praising, and being in awe of Him and in honor of Him, this is not Hamd. This is Madh. If you, the Shaykh says, if you were to praise someone without love, without honoring him, but out of fear of him, or for any other reason, then this is madh. This is praise only. This is not hamd. You could hate the one you're praising. Yes? But you're praising them for a reason. Like the ruler, for example. Come back to a ruler. You might not like him, but you need something from him. Yes? So the easiest way to get something from a ruler is to praise them. That's the easiest way to do it. Praise them and say things that they are not deserving of. Yes? To soften their heart to you, so you can get what you want from them. And this was the way, that's why the shu'ara, the poets always used to be around the rulers. Always praising them, and getting gold, sacks of gold. As for their praise. Okay? They might in themselves hate the ruler. Have no love for him. Maybe they don't hate him, but they don't have any love for him. Okay? This is madh. Yes? This is not hamd. Hamd only belongs to Allah. Hamd only belongs to Allah. Because you might praise somebody and love that person, but you won't have the ta'zeem of them. You don't see the greatness of them and be in awe of them, the awe that Allah deserves. This is hamd. And al-hamd only belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. And the hamd that belongs to Him because He is Allah. Yes? Al-hamd belongs to Allah because He is Allah. First, for Himself. For His asma wa sifat. For His perfect names and perfect attributes. For His perfect actions. Everything that He has done is perfect. Jalla wa ala. There's no deficiency in anything that Allah has done. Okay? He's perfect in Himself. He's perfect in His names and attributes. He's perfect in every action that He does. Jalla wa ala. And you praise Him for all the bounties and things that He's given you, that you can't count. This is why you praise Allah Azza wa Jal. And if we spent all our time praising Allah, we wouldn't have given Allah His right. Yes? أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. You are deserving of the praise like you praise yourself. Allah praise. How many times in the Quran Allah praises Himself? So many times He praises Himself. Because He is deserving of all praise. And He loves to be praised. There's no greater action that you can do, or greater thing that you can say than praising Allah Azza wa Jal. Remember we said dua is of two types. We've mentioned this before. Dua is of two types. Dua what? Dua al-ibadah. Well, dua is al-ibadah. Well, yes. No, but dua of ibadah is of two types. You're going to confuse me, Faisal. Yes? Dua huwa al-ibadah. Dua is ibadah. Yes? But dua al-mas'ala, where you asking Allah for something. Yes? And dua al-thana, dua of praise. Dua al-thana is probably better. Because in the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ asked, or was it the Prophet ﷺ or somebody else? I can't remember. Somebody asked Allah, but it's the hadith, I think Musa, on Arafah, day of Arafah. What should we say? Yes? I might be getting the hadith wrong, but what should we say? Allah said, say, La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharik, lahul mulku wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. This is the dua of Arafah. Did you ask anything? No? But this is what Allah wanted them to say, showing that the dua of praise is more beloved to Allah than the dua of mas'ala. Allah loves to be praised because He is ahlan lil hamd wal majd. He is deserving of it. Jalla wa ala. Okay. Then he says, أظهر. What does he say? قد أظهر. What does أظهر mean? He says أخرج, to make it open, to show it. And the word أشهر, يعني نشر. أشهر means to spread. So the meaning of the couplet is, all praise is for Allah, the one who made open or made apparent ilm al-usul, the knowledge of usul al-fiqh. Lil wara are humanity or the people. Wa ashhara, and made it spread. This knowledge made this knowledge spread, made it wide. Okay. So that's the meaning of the couplet. Sometimes they will call usul al-fiqh ilm al-usul, or they'll call it al-usul. Okay. When you see that, generally it will just mean usul al-fiqh. Yeah. But they might, usul al-fiqh is a long word. Let's shorten it. Al-usul. Okay. Al-usul. So they mean by al-usul, usul al-fiqh, or ilm al-usul, the knowledge of usul. Then he says, Al-Amrati says, على لسان الشافعي هو على لسان الشافعي وهونا فهو الذي له ابتداء دونا. Problem with the iPad is the words are very small, I can't see them. Okay, upon the tongue of Shafi'i. Who is al-Shafi'i? Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i al-Qurashi. Okay, the Imam. وَهَوَّنَا, made it easy. And made it easy. وَهَوَّنَا means to make it easy. فَهُوَ الَّذِي, he is the one. Who is he? Shafi'i. Is the one who began it and wrote it down. What he means is that the first person to actually write it down as a science and put it in book form or study form was Imam Shafi'i. Before that, it existed, but in the minds and hearts of the scholars. Yes, Prophet ﷺ knew Usool Al-Fiqh. Yes, the companions learnt Usool Al-Fiqh from the Prophet ﷺ verbally, and from how he, from his speech, they learnt Usool Al-Fiqh and how to understand. They learnt it from the Quran, but they never wrote it down. Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi knew Usul al-Fiqh inside out, but he never wrote it down. Imam Malik knew Usul al-Fiqh inside out, but he never wrote it down. First Imam to actually sit and write it down was Imam Shafi'i. He wrote it down, but he only wrote down 20% of it. If you look at his book Ar-Risala, which is a book of Usul al-Fiqh, it only covers 20% of the whole of Usul al-Fiqh. So where did the rest of it come from? His students? People, later day scholars codified it, but that knowledge was already there. They just wrote down that knowledge. Imam Shafi, why did he write Ar-Risala? Ar-Risala is the first book of Usul al-Fiqh. But why did he write Ar-Risala? Somebody asked him too many times to write down certain principles that they could use in understanding the text of the Quran and the Sunnah. And he kept putting it off. Until Ishaq ibn Rahawayh came to him and said to him, no, this is not on. You must write it down. So he said, okay, because you, Al-Imam, asked, I will write it down. And he wrote down that which came to his mind at that time, and wrote it down. And then he read it to certain ulama. He read it to Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Remember, one of his teachers was Sufyan ibn Uyayna. And then once he got they checked it, they agreed with it, then he started to teach it. But again, it's only 20% of what is Usool Al-Fiqh. Okay. Generally, how was Usool Al-Fiqh dealt with? Usool Al-Fiqh was known by the ulama, and they would use it when they were doing rulings. Yes. But when we come to a study of Usool Al-Fiqh, there are two main ways of studying Usool Al-Fiqh, or the three ways. Let's say three ways that are said are the study of Usool Al-Fiqh. The way of the Mutakallimin, which is the way of the Shafi'iyya, yes, which is the way of the Hanabila, which is the way of the Malikiyya. But for some reason it's called either the way of the Mutakallimin or the way of the Shafi'iyya. Why? Because Imam Shafi began it. Yes, that's the first way. The second way is the way of the Ahnaf, the way of the Hanafis. Okay? And the third way is a combined way between both. Yes? The first way, which is the way of the Mutakallim and the Shafi'iyya, is to ignore the rulings of any madhab. Ignore the rulings and just derive the principles from the text. Yes? Without looking at the fiqh rulings. Just derive, so that's a top-down approach, yes? So you go from the text, derive rulings from the text, and then based upon that you build the rulings of fiqh, yes? Top-down, okay? The Hanafi is opposite. You have the rulings of fiqh of their imam, yes? Based upon that, they derive rulings of how the imam understood the text. Yes? And then based upon that, they put together Usool Al-Fiqh. Okay? You have the rulings of the imam on all these different issues. From that, you can derive how he understood the verses of the Quran and how he understood the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And based upon that, you can derive principles that the imam mentally used to come up with his rulings. Yes? And based upon that, you can write a codified Usool Al-Fiqh. Yes? This is bottom up. People are upset with that already. Upset because it's Hanafi already. Then you upset on top because it's bottom up. Yes.
Isn't that what the madhahib did?
That's what I was going to come to. In reality, that's not true. All of the madhahib use the way of the Hanafis. All of them, in reality, to write down Usool Al-Fiqh went bottom up. In reality. Even though people say this, and it's still said. But it's not correct. Because Imam Shafi wrote down 20%. Where did they get the rest of the 80%? From the fiqh rulings of Imam Shafi. They looked at his fiqh rulings, saw how he understood certain texts, based on that pulled out principles and said these are the usul of Imam Shafi. Okay? Exactly the Hanafi way. The Hanabila did the exact same thing. Looked at what Imam Ahmad said on issues. Based upon that, of course, Imam Ahmad didn't write anything down, except in Musnad Imam Ahmad and some other few books, but nothing in usul. So again, they looked at his rulings. Based upon that, understood how he understood the text. Based upon that, came up with principles that became the usul al-fiqh. Same the Malikiyya. Imam Malik wrote Al-Muwatta. In that, there's no usul al-fiqh, but there are his rulings. And Al-Mudawwana, which are his rulings. Based upon that, they saw how he understood the text, pulled out principles from that, and then codified usul al-fiqh. Everyone followed the Hanafis. That's why Imam Malik said, fiqh is the child of Abu Hanifa. Fiqh is in need of Abu Hanifa. Okay? Without Abu Hanifa, don't know what would be the state. Rahmatullah alayhim ajma'in. Yes. Everyone did the same way. There was no other way of doing it. There's no other way of doing it. The Zahiris, they came to Ibn Dawood, I think his name is, Al-Zahiri. And again, they looked at his rulings. And then they did the same process, bottom-up way. They might have differed with him on certain things, like Ibn Hazm came and changed certain issues. Said, no, he got it wrong here and got it right here. But it was all the same way. The first person to actually do what we say is the Shafi'i or the Mutakallimin way was Baqillani, who was Maliki. After 400 years. Was it 400 years? Yeah. About 400 years later, Baqillani came and codified it, bottom down. He ignored everything. He ignored all of the madhahib. And he said Usool Al-Fiqh has no madhab. Yeah, we'll start from the Quran downwards. Looking at the adillah and how we derive from the adillah and the rules that we need to use. And he said that in reality Usool Al-Fiqh has no madhab because it's not connected to fiqh. Fiqh is connected to the madhab, yes? Whereas Usool has no madhab. Even though we attribute it to Imam Shafi'i because he was the first one to write it down. Even though he only wrote 20% of it, roughly. Okay. Ibn Uthaymeen doesn't mention that, but out of research, I found this is true. Later on, in modern times, or just before modern time, some people came and tried to join the two different ways, the Hanafi way and the Mutakallimin way, and come up with a combined way. Generally, nowadays we study the combined way. Nowadays we study the combined way. Yes? Everybody with me on that so far? So Usool Al-Fiqh doesn't have a madhab. Usool Al-Fiqh is how we deal with the text. What is an evidence and how we deal with it and how we understand it. It has no madhab. The madhabs only get involved if we do the bottom way up. Then the madhabs get involved. Yes? That's why there's differences even in usul. Yes? That's why there's differences in usul. Is this a hujjah or is this not a hujjah? Yes? Based upon what did our Imam say on this issue? Did he use the qawl of the Sahabi as a hujjah or not? Yes? If he did, then we'll make it a hujjah in Usool Al-Fiqh. If he didn't, then we won't make it a proof in Usool Al-Fiqh based upon the Imam. Okay? Al-Baqillani said, no, we don't want to look at what the Imam said. We want to look at it just theoretically. Should it be a hujjah or not? Yes? For example, qawl al-Sahabi. Forget what the Imams have to say. Should it, a statement of a Sahabi by himself, should it be a proof in and of itself? And we base rulings upon it or not? So he said, theoretically it is or it isn't. Okay? That's debatable. Yes? But without looking at the Imam. Okay. So he mentioned what I just mentioned, roughly. He says that Imam Shafi was the first one to write down Usool Al-Fiqh, even though the Usul were known and the companions understood it from the Quran and the Sunnah. And they understood, for example, the Shaykh says, Isti'mal al-Umum, they understood that we use the general wordings. You use the wording in its general meaning. And for general meaning, for words come in a way that indicate that they are a general. For example, al-insan. The word al-insan, in its wording itself, al-insan gives you that it encompasses everything which is insan. No one person is excluded from insan. Yes, that's understood in the meaning. In a hadith, he says, Shaykh says, في قول المصلي السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. In when do we say this bit in the salah? At-tahiyat. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. What does it mean? Pray, peace be upon us and all of Allah's righteous slaves. Yes? But there's no all. There's no all there. It says, upon us and upon the slaves of Allah righteous. The righteous slaves of Allah. Where do we get all? From ibad. Everyone who is ibad salih comes within this. So it means, in reality, this is a meaning of generality. That it's open for everyone. Umum. This is Usool Al-Fiqh. The Prophet ﷺ explained this to them when he said, إِنَّكُمْ إِذَا قُلْتُمْ ذَلِكَ. If you, when you say that, فَقَدْ سَلَّمْتُ عَلَى كُلِّ عَبْدٍ صَالِحٍ فِي السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Then you have given salam to every righteous slave in the heavens and the earth. When you say that, we don't think of that, do we? Assalamu alaikum, let's get out of it. No. But if we were to think, and with this hadith, that when we're saying that we're giving salam to every righteous slave of Allah in the heavens and in the earth, we're covering them all. Okay? But we don't think, that's the problem. We don't stop and think. It's narrated in Bukhari and Muslim. Then he explains from where did we take that. He says, "Min aina akhadna annana sallamna ala." From where did we understand that? We understand that from the actual wording itself, that this wording is for generality. Ibad, ibadullah. It covers every abd. Because it is a jam'un mudafun faya'um. It is a plural word which is mudaf, which is in the state of possession. Yes? You know mudaf ilayh? Kitabullah, mudaf ilayh. Those who study some Arabic. Okay? Any word which is plural, which is mudaf to something else, then that is a type of general meaning. It gives you a general meaning. Okay? So here it follows that, so it is general. This is the problem with Usool Fiqh. You have to go back to the language. And if you don't have the Arabic, you won't, some bits will skip you by. I'll try and explain them as best as possible. Then the Shaykh gives another example. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَيْضًا فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَأُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ أَجَلُهُنَّ أَنْ يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنَّ. Where Allah is talking about the divorced women. What is their iddah? The divorced women who are pregnant. أُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ. Those women who are carrying. What do they carry? Not the groceries. No, they're carrying a child. Yes? أُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ. Ajaluhunna, Allah says that their iddah period, if their husband divorces them, is until they give birth. As soon as they give birth, their iddah is over. Okay? Normally, a woman who's divorced by a husband and she's not pregnant, what is her iddah?
4 months.
Not 4 months.
3 ثلاثة قروء.
ثلاثة قروء. 3 menstrual cycles. 3 menstrual cycles. So it's from one cycle to the next cycle to the next cycle. After the last cycle is over, her last bleeding is over, and she becomes pure, then she, and her husband hasn't taken her back, then the divorce is finalized. Okay? So there's roughly 3 months, roughly. And somebody who doesn't have a menstrual cycle has 3 months, exactly 3 months. Yes? But in the case if she's pregnant, then her iddah period is until she gives birth. However long or short that is. However long that short that is. The husband could divorce her in a day before she gives birth. Yes? While she's pregnant, he can divorce her. Yes? I'm not saying he should divorce her. I'm not saying that. But if he divorced her the day before, and the divorce would be valid, as long as he had no relations with her, the divorce is valid, and then the next day she gives birth. Yes? she's become halal to marry again. Soon as after her nifas, what's nifas? Postnatal bleeding. After she goes through her nifas, as soon as she becomes pure, she can marry. Okay? So, which makes her iddah very short. Her iddah becomes very short. So the ruling is different for here and there. So he's saying that this word, awlatul ahmal, is general. Any woman divorced carrying a child. That could be one who's divorced by her husband. Any woman who's carrying a child. It doesn't mention divorce here. Okay, it doesn't mention divorce. Any woman who's carrying a child, her iddah period is until she gives birth, which encompasses the one who is divorced and the one whose husband dies. Because it's general. So, for example, if the husband dies the day before she gives birth, as soon as she has given birth and she becomes pure, she can marry again. Yes? She doesn't have to wait. The woman whose husband dies, what's her iddah period? And she's not pregnant. 4 months and 10 days. 4 months and 10 days. She cannot marry. And she cannot beautify herself. And she could not use perfume or anything. This is out of respect for the husband. Use 10 days according to the majority. So now we have this ayah takes precedence. This ayah takes precedence. That if she's pregnant, then the ruling of the one who's not pregnant doesn't apply. So 4 months, 10 days doesn't apply. This ruling applies. Because it covers, because of the wording, covers all women who are pregnant. Whether she's divorced or whether her husband dies. Okay? Because of the wording. They understood that this is Usool Al-Fiqh. Yes? When do we give precedence to this verse over this verse? Yes? This is all Usool Al-Fiqh. How did we understand that this is the case and that this is general? One is from the wording and one is from actually the incident that happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Min an Subayya al-Aslamiyya, she went into postnatal bleeding when she had a child. بعد موت زوجها بليل, after 1 day of the death of her husband. So the Prophet ﷺ, and she became clean straight away. Yes, so she didn't have much bleeding, and she became clean straight away. فأذن له النبي أن تتزوج. So the Prophet ﷺ gave her the permission to marry. And in some other narrations, one of her relatives entered upon her, a male relative, and saw her putting on good clothes and putting on kuhl. You know kuhl? Yes? Getting ready. What for? She just given birth. Her husband just died a day ago. And she is getting ready for people to come and give proposal of marriage. In the time of the Salaf, in the time of the companions, they didn't let the woman sit. She was divorced, her husband died, somebody would straight away take place, marry the woman. They wouldn't leave the woman without husband. Yeah? That's why she's getting ready. The people are going to come. It's only been a day, your husband only died a day ago. Are you getting ready for marriage? Like, I know a brother's wife passed away and he waited 4 or 5 months, something like that, or 6 months. Then he got married. Some women commented that that's very short time waiting. That's very short time. Even though the man doesn't have any time to wait. There's no iddah on the man. The man has no iddah. He can get married the same day that she dies. I'm not saying it's good. There's no iddah for the man. The women saying that 6 months after, too little time. He didn't mourn his wife correctly. He didn't give her the right. You can understand it from their point of view. We have to wait 4 months and 10 days. And you guys straight away? وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, as Allah says, and the man is not like the woman. The man is not like the woman. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ used this general to give this ruling, this general principle from the ayah to give this ruling. So the Shaykh says that based upon this, Usool Al-Fiqh is established in the Quran and in the Sunnah. But the only thing we say is that the first person to write it down, or write part of it down, was Imam Shafi'i in book form. And the Prophet ﷺ, then Ibn Uthaymin says, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man sanna fil Islami sunnatan hasanatan falahu ajruha wa ajru man amila biha ila yawm al-qiyam." And the one who does a good, or puts down a good path, or somebody translate the hadith for me. I'm going to do a bad job. Whoever gives a good example, perhaps, or puts out a good example in Islam, and then sets a good example, okay, then he has the reward of it, and the reward of all of those who act upon it or follow it until the day of judgment. So can you imagine all the scholars who came after Imam Shafi'i benefited from Imam Shafi'i and added on, all of that reward goes to Imam Shafi'i without anyone else's reward being depleted. Of course, each person gets their reward fully, and Imam Shafi'i gets the reward for all of them. Then he moves to the next couplet. Says, وتابعته الناس حتى صار كتبا صغار الحجم أو كبارا. Then he says, and people followed him upon it. Upon what? Upon writing Usool Al-Fiqh down. حتى صار, until this became books, small in size and big. Small in size and big. So some people wrote big volumes, Usool Al-Fiqh. And some wrote little treatise, papers, like the one we have here. Waraqat, what does added waraqat mean? Pages. That's what it means. His book is called Waraqat because it was pages. And it had a lot of knowledge in it, but it was pages, few pages. Okay. So the people who came after him followed him, but they wrote big books or small books. Then he says, وَخَيْرُ كُتْبِهِ الصِّغَارِ مَا سُمِّيَ. And from the best of the books, from the best of the books on it, which are small. Okay? Now the poems, I'm going to destroy the poem in the way I translate it. Okay? You're going to be put off with the poem, with my translation. وَخَيْرُ كُتْبِهِ الصِّغَارِ. And from the best of the small books written on it, okay, that which is called بِالْوَرَقَاتِ لِلْإِمَامِ الْحَرَمِ. That which is known by Al-Waraqat for the Imam al-Harami, or the Imam of the Haramain. Okay, so we know Al-Waraqat is the asal of this, is the book from which he's made the poem. Yes? And he says it's from the best of the books which are small in size. Yes? And he says that the book is written by Al-Imam Al-Haramain. They call him Al-Harami. Okay? Why does he call him Al-Harami? Because of the poem. He has to stick to the certain rules within the poetry. So sometimes in the poem you drop things. You drop things and put sukoons where you shouldn't put a sukoon. Like in the verse before, he said fahwa. Instead of saying fahuwa, he said fahwa. So he put a sukoon on the ha. Yes? If you look back at the verse before, anybody has it? Where is it? على لسان الشافعي وهونا فهو الذي. So he put a sukoon on ha. It should be fahuwa. Yeah? Because of the poem. But that's also a recitation in Quran as well. Yes. Is it to do with the sukoon? Okay. Yes. It's from the lahjat of the Arab. From the dialects. Well, some of the qira'at are fahwa. Whenever fa and huwa come, then they do say fahwa. Or wahwa. Wow, it's quicker. Okay. And then he said, so then he mentions, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions Imam Al-Haramain. Who was Imam Al-Haramain? What was his name? I mentioned his name before. Abu Al-Ma'ali. Abu Al-Ma'ali. Ma'ali comes from high. He was the father of being high. I mean, he was of such a high status that they called him Abu Al-Ma'ali. Abdul Malik. His name was Abdul Malik. Ibn Abdullah ibn Yusuf Al-Jawaini and Naysaburi. Again, he was born in 419, died in 478. He learnt under his father first, while he was a child. So he comes from a family of knowledge. Then he moved from Naysabur to Baghdad, and then studied in Baghdad, and then he moved to Mecca and Medina for 4 years, where he taught and gave fatwa and wrote, and he led the people in prayer. And that's why he was called Imam Al-Haramain. Okay? I don't know, somewhere around there. I don't know where it is. All these names have changed now. Somewhere over there, in that area. Okay. Then he says, the next part of the poem, وَقَدْ can't see it again. وَقَدْ سَئِلْتُ مُدَّةً فِي نَظْمِهِ مُسَهِّلًا لِحِفْظِهِ وَفَهْمِهِ. And I was asked, so this is a poet saying, I was asked a long time ago, muddatan, some time ago, fi nazmihi, to put it in poetry form. Musahilan, for the purpose of making it easy, lihifdhihi, for its memorization, wa fahmihi, and for its understanding. So the two reasons was to simply make it easy for memorizing it and for understanding the intent behind it. And most of the times, the scholars, when they wrote their writings, they wrote because they were asked. They wrote because they were asked. Not like our time. Our time, people write to become famous, to be known. Yes? In their time, they wrote, and they used to put it off. Oh, no, somebody else. Yes? Only after they had been asked so many times that they, like Imam Shafi, he sat down and wrote down Ar-Risala. Same thing here. After some time, he decided, okay, I'll write it down. I'll put it into poetry form. And then the Shaykh mentioned that why it's easy for them to memorize because of the rhymes in it and all of that. And he says that if somebody was to try to memorize 10 sentences from a text, he wouldn't be able to, whereas he can memorize thousands of lines of poetry. Again, perhaps that's true for the Arabs. Perhaps that's true for the Arabs. Allah knows it. And then the Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions a couplet from Safarini. Who's that Safarini? No? Safarini is from the Hanbali ulama. He wrote some books. One of them is a poem on Aqidah. He says, لأنه يسهل للحفظ كما يروق للسمع ويشفي من ظمأ should be, because he's talking why he wrote it, his Aqidah. It's called Aqidah Safariniya. Why he wrote it in poem form. Yeah? So he says at the beginning he wrote it because it is easy for memorization. And likewise, people like to hear it. Yes? You know, like An-Nuniyya of Ibn Al-Qayyim. Just put it on and go to sleep. Put you to sleep. It's nice, the sound of it. Yes? Especially if somebody's got a nice voice and they read it. Or An-Nuniyat Qahtani. Yes? These are poems in Aqidah. Yes? And so the ears like to hear it. And he says it cures from thirst. It will cure the one who has thirst. Min dhama. Okay? So he said then, so if you want to, you can get the Aqidah Safariniyya I don't think it's in English. Then the Shaykh says that the poems are more make the knowledge more firm in the mind rather than texts. Again, maybe for the Arabs. Maybe for the Arabs, I don't know. Generally, I find texts easier than poems. I can't remember the poems. They come in and go out. But text I can remember. Because text sometimes you don't remember the exact wordings, but you remember what the meaning of it. Yes? And the intent of it. Yes? Whereas a poem you have to remember the exact words. It is easier to remember if there's a tune attached to it. But again, it takes time for you to have to memorize it. Yes? Okay. Then he says, the next couplet, فَلَمْ أَجِدْ مِمَّا سُئِلْتُ بُدًّا. He says, so I didn't find any issue with what I was asked. Yes? What was he asked? To write. Couldn't find any excuse. I was saying I couldn't find any excuse. If he could find an excuse, he wouldn't have bothered. Right? وقد شرعت فيه مستمدا من ربنا التوفيق للصواب والنفع في الدارين بالكتاب. Okay? And I began مستمدا. What does mustamid mean? Seeking the aid, basically, or seeking support from my Lord, from our Lord, ربنا التوفيق, and seeking His tawfiq. What was tawfiq? Good word for tawfiq? Ability? Is it ability? It's tawfiq. Okay? Tawfiq is tawfiq. Okay? Everybody knows what tawfiq? Okay, alhamdulillah. Tawfiq lis-sawab, that Allah enables me, okay, gives me ability to reach the truth, to reach the correctness in what I'm doing. One nafa fi daraini, and that it benefits me. But he doesn't say that. It benefits everyone. It benefits fi daraini, in the two places of abode. Dar is a place of abode, place of stay. What are the two dars that we have? Dunya wal akhirah. Darain. Because they're both places where we stay. But here we stay for temporary time. No matter how long it gets. It's still temporary. Yes? And in the akhirah, it's for forever. Yes? So benefit in both here and in the dunya and the hereafter, bil kitabi, with what I've written. Here, bil kitabi, it means literally with the book. But what he means is what I've written. Okay? And that's what Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin says. Then he mentioned as-sawab, lis-sawab. As-sawab is to agree with the truth. Correct, to be correct, is that you agree with the truth. That's what it means to be correct. Whereas al-khata is the opposite of sawab. We have sawab and khata. Khata is to disagree with the truth, to go against the truth. That's khata. If somebody goes against the truth intentionally, the Shaykh says, then we call him khati. He is wrong. Then we call him khati. We only call him khati if he does it intentionally. And the Shaykh is making a linguistic point in the language. We only call somebody khati when they intentionally go against the truth. Okay? Whereas if they go against the truth unintentionally, then we call him mukhti. Mukhti means he made a mistake. Then he made a mistake. For example, I was talking about the Ash'ari today in the dars before, and we mentioned Ibn Hajar, and we mentioned An-Nawawi. And that on issues of Allah's names and attributes, they agreed with the Ash'ari. Yes? They agreed with the Ash'ari. They were generally on the madhab of the Ash'ari. They interpreted out Allah's names and attributes. What do we call them? Khati or mukhti? Well, we call them khati. We call them mukhti. Khati. They didn't do it intentionally. They thought what they were doing was the truth. And they thought that was the madhab of the Salaf. And that's why they fell into it. And that was the overwhelming opinion of the scholars around them. Okay? So they did it unintentionally. So we call them mukhti. And we benefit from them. Yes? The khati is the one we don't benefit from. The khati generally, the one who won't listen to the truth, doesn't want the truth. If we can avoid them, then we avoid them and don't take from them. If we can't avoid them and they are the only ones with the knowledge, then what do we do? So we're in a place, there's no people of knowledge except these people who are astray on this one issue, say in Aqidah. They totally lost the plot. On Aqidah. But in fiqh, in hadith, in Usool Al-Fiqh, in qira'ah, they are top. What do? We don't learn anything. Yes? We sit back and say, oh Allah, I'm excused. Yes? Is that what we do? We don't follow them in their mistakes. You have to, if you know that this is a mistake, you don't follow them in their mistake. That's why I said that's why I made a condition that you know they're wrong. I made that condition first. You know they're wrong on these issues. Yes? Then you can take from them that which you are in need of. And leave that which you don't know. That which you know is wrong. Yes? And that's only when you have no other access to anyone else. Yes? If you have access to somebody else who is upon the truth, then why would you leave him and go to somebody who's not? Why would you leave him? This is only when, for example, the qira'at, the recitation. Generally, the people of the people on the madhab of the Salaf generally don't have the qira'at. Yes? But the people who are astray, they have the qira'at. Okay? So what do? You go and read to them and get the qira'at from them. Yes? And leave the bid'ah, especially where you know the bid'ahs that they're doing. You take from them. And Allah knows best. Then he mentioned that, the Shaykh mentioned that, so khati and mukhti. When was khati? When somebody does it intentionally. And mukhti was? Allah says, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. Oh, our Lord, don't take us to account if we forget or if we make a mistake. What did Allah say? قَالَ اللَّهُ قَدْ فَعَلْتُ. I have done so. Allah has promised us that He will not punish us for what we do out of forgetfulness. And what we do out of making a mistake. And not knowing that what we were doing was wrong. Allah will not take us to account for that. He take us to account for everything else. قَدْ فَعَلْتُ. Then he says, he mentions the problem with Ibn Uthaymeen as well, rahmatullahi alayhi. He refers to the language so much. Goes back to the language, and so you're going to have to put up with it. He says, وَاسْمُ الْفَاعِلِ. How do I translate ism al-fa'il? The doer of the verbal noun. Yeah, the verbal noun, ism al-fa'il. Okay, like eater, and the doer, basically. Verbal noun of akhta'a is mukhti. And the meaning of it is the one who is pardoned. The one of mukhti is the one who is pardoned. Linguistically as well. He's proving his point from the Sharia. And he's proving it linguistically that the one in the language, mukhti, is ma'fu'an. That he's pardoned. Why? Because he did it unknowing and unintentionally. وَأَمَّا الْخَاطِئ. As for khati, he says, فَقَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. And this is, see how Allah is using it in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala, when He uses words, He uses them with perfection. And no other word can take its place. Yes. In our daily speech, we can move one word around for another word, no problem. In the Quran, you can't move a dot. Yes? Forget about the words. Okay. Allah says, وَلَا طَعَامٌ إِلَّا مِنْ غِسْلِينَ. When He's talking about the people of Jahannam. That they have no food except ghisleen. I can't remember what ghisleen is. But it's not going to be good. Huh? Is it pus? Perhaps it's pus. It's not going to be good. Jahannam, no good. Huh? لا يأكله, none will eat it إلا الخاطئون, except those who did wrong. Intentionally. خاطئون. خاطئ. Not the one, Allah didn't say إلا المخطئون. He didn't say except the ones who made mistakes. No. He said the ones who did wrong, knowing that it was wrong, intending it. They are the ones that Allah will punish. So, even in the Quran, Allah uses these. That's the beauty, that's the eloquence of the Quran. Okay, then he says, Ibn Uthaymeen says, الَّذِينَ خَالَفُوا الصَّوَابَ عَنْ عَمْدٍ. The ones who went against the truth, the correct, went against that which is correct, intentionally. وقوله والنف في الدارين, what is meant by benefit in the darain. We mentioned what is darain? The dunya wal akhirah. وبالكتاب الظاهر أنه أراد بالكتاب هنا نظمه. He says that what he meant by kitab here is his writing of the poem, and not al-waraqat. Because how can he ask for benefit of waraqat or the reward for waraqat when he didn't write waraqat? Yes? لأن الورقات لا عمل له فيها. He didn't do anything with waraqat. Waraqat was written by Al-Jawaini. If anybody deserves the reward for waraqat, it's me. No? It's Al-Jawaini, the one who wrote it. وإنما عمله بالنظم. But his reward should be connected to what he did. Yes? Everybody will get what he did. The reward for what he did, good or bad. Not for what anybody else did. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No person will take the sins or the rewards of anybody else. Then he moves on to the actual chapter of Usool Al-Fiqh. Bab Usool Al-Fiqh. He says, هاك أصول الفقه لفظا لقبا للفن من جزئين قد تركبا. الأول الأصول ثم الثاني الفقه والجزآن مفردان. ما شاء الله. Sounds nice. Did you understand? No? I understood. In Arabic lessons, we have Arabic lessons, and the students read the text. I said, okay, did you understand? They say, no. I said, oh, well, I understood. Okay, let's move on. It shows I'm a good teacher, yes? Okay, haka usul, that is usul. That is usul al-fiqh. Haka means that is. Okay, it's still used haka by the people of Sham. They haka and heka, they use those. But haka usul means that is the usul al-fiqh. Lafzan as a word, laqaba as a science, laqaba as a title. Laqab is title, so word title. So that is usul al-fiqh as a word title. That is linguistically, that's what it is. Or the title we give it to this science is usul al-fiqh. Lil-fanni. This is the title for the science. Fan means the science. Yeah. Min juz'ayni qad tarakkaba. It is made up of, this title is made up of two parts that have been joined together. Tarakkaba. Yeah? The door is made up of parts, yes? Compound. We put them together. Tarakkaba. Tarkeeb. Okay? Al-awwal al-usul. The first part of these two parts is usul. ثم الثاني الفقه. Then the second part is al-fiqh. وَالْجُزْآنِ مُفْرَدَانِ. And both parts are singular words. Yes? They're mufrad. They're not what? They're singular, they're not plural words. They're singular words. Okay, he says, do I do something? He says haka. Okay, haka is not. This is Shaykh Taymin says haka is khudh. Okay, ismu fa'il. Nowadays it's used as that is, especially in Sham. But he's saying linguistically it's khudh. Khudh means take. وهو اسم فعل أمر. Forget that. It's اسم فعل أمر. Can you give us a translation for that? اسم فعل أمر.
It's a commanding verb. It's the
No,
name of the command.
it's a noun. It's a noun based upon a word which implies command. It's an imperative. Nounal imperative. Can we have that? It's a nounal imperative. If it's anything, it's not an imperative in itself. It has the meaning of a command, but it itself is not it's a noun. Yes? When you command somebody, sit. Is that word sit? What is it? It's a verb. Yes? A verb for order. Yes? But it's still a verb. It's not a noun. Here we're saying there's words in Arabic which are nouns, but they mean a command. This is ism fi'l amr. Okay? I forgot. There's many of them. Huh? Alayka. It can be. Hayhala. Hayhala. This is ism fi'l amr. It means come with me. Hayhala. And there's others as well. Yes. Yeah. There could be. Ismu fa'il. It was ismu fa'il. Ismu fa'il. Verbal noun. No. It might not be. Anyway, doesn't matter. Just leave it how it was. Perhaps we made a mistake in no verbal noun. This is a problem here. Okay. We'll have these problems. Anyway. No, it's not verbal noun. I don't know. Check it. Okay, let's just get back to this. So he says before we can, the name of this science is Usool Al-Fiqh, yes, as a title. But this title is made up of two words, two separate words, yes. They're combined together to give us the science. And there's two ways of us defining this science. Yes, two ways of us defining this science. One way of us defining this science is by defining both words. Yes? And the other way of defining the science is by defining both words together, when they're put together. Yes? For a complete meaning of it, complete definition, we need to do both ways. Yes? So first define usul, then define fiqh, then define usul al-fiqh. Okay? So he says, the Shaykh does it the opposite way. So the Shaykh says, he says, before we even go into that, what's the benefit of learning this science? What's the benefit, before we even go into that, what's the benefit of learning this science? What's its fa'idah? There's no fa'idah at all, let's go home. Huh? Now what's the benefit of it?
Understand what the Prophet sallallahu
That's not to solve.
and how the companions understood what
Good. To understand the revelation. Yeah? We are able to understand the revelation. That's exactly what you're saying. But I'm just shortening it. To understand the revelation. And what is meant by the wordings of the revelation. Also the Shaykh says that based upon it you are able to derive the rulings from the revelation. In a correct manner. People can derive rulings from the revelation, from the text, yes? But in an incorrect manner. Yes? They can come up with all sorts of things from the revelation and say that this is what I understood. Yes? I read the verse of the Quran and this is my understanding. That's not a correct way of deriving a ruling. Because there's certain steps that you have to follow to derive anything or to understand anything of the text. Where do we get these steps from? Usool Al-Fiqh. Usool Al-Fiqh gives us the steps. And these are the only steps we can use to understand the text and derive rulings from it. If we don't have these steps, we don't have these principles, then we are not allowed to derive rulings. Okay? Then he mentions, was this knowledge known in the time of the companions? We've already dealt with that. It was known, but it wasn't written down. Who can give me another example of a knowledge that was known but wasn't written down in the time of the companions? Tajweed. Did they know ikhfa and idgham and the rest of mad wajib, mad lazim, mad this, mad the other? But they knew how to recite the Quran, yes? Any other science? Basically all of the sciences.
He didn't derive into those.
No, they didn't know the three types of Tawheed as categories. Yes, that's true. They knew the word Tawheed. Yes, they knew what Tawheed means. And they knew what it implies and what it negates. Yes, and they knew what La ilaha illallah meant. But they didn't know there's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat and the definitions of each one. But does that mean I should say that a companion, if he sat at a first year exam from Medina University, he'd fail? Does that give me the right to say that? That's belittling the companions. Yes? That's taking from them. That they couldn't even pass a first year exam in a university that for a Medina University for children. Yeah? If they said Azhar, then okay, slightly higher than children. Anyway, anybody who's been to Medina understands why I said what I said, comparing it to Azhar. So, they understood the concepts without the words. So yes, okay, they wouldn't be able to, if somebody asked them a question in the exam, if somebody asked them the question, what are the three categories of Tawheed? Yes? Perhaps they couldn't answer you. Yes, perhaps. Because they didn't know these categorizations. Is that important? If you know Tawheed. Somebody knows Tawheed his whole life, he lives upon Tawheed, but he's never heard of Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, Asma wa Sifat. Is Allah going to punish him? No. As long as he fulfills Tawheed. He knows Shirk, but he doesn't know the definition, how to define what is Shirk. Yeah? And he knows there's big Shirk and there's small Shirk, but he doesn't know how do I define either one of them. Is that going to be a problem? No. The problem is when he doesn't do that which or doesn't believe that which he's supposed to believe. Yeah. Why was I talking about that? I lost it.
What is science known?
Oh, what sciences were known? Okay, good. Alhamdulillah, somebody's paying attention. Nahu was known in speech. They would speak with Nahu, but they didn't know what is Mubtada and what is Khabar. He told him to write it down and write down what is this and what is that. Ali is the one who instigated the writing of An-Nahu. But the one who actually wrote it down was Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. He was the first one who wrote it down as a science form and broke it down. And then later other people came and broke it down further and whatever. But they wouldn't know what is Marfu and Mansub and Majzoom and all. They wouldn't have a clue. What is Ism al-Fa'il and what is Ism al-Maf'ul and all of this. What's this Ism Fi'l? Ism what? Ism Fi'l Amr. They'd be lost like we are lost. But they knew how to use it. They wouldn't make mistakes in the language. They would be looked down upon. There are still places where people look down upon people who don't know their Nahu. There are places. One brother narrates that he was living in Mauritania. And he was living with a family, and the mother became very ill. Okay? So the son said to the brother, take us in your car, he had a car, and to the hospital. And of course, Mauritania, the hospital is quite far away. So they're rural. And so they went in the car, and his mother is in the back, and they're in the front, and driving. And so the brother said, let me put on a tape of somebody's, while we're going this journey, listen to something, yes? So they put on the tape, and the Shaykh, whoever's on the tape, is speaking, and the woman all of a sudden makes noises, like she's in, as if she's in pain, yes? As if she's in pain. So after some time, he says to the son, ask your mother what's wrong. She keeps making these noises. I fear that she's really sick. So he turned to his mother and said, what's wrong? She said, the Shaykh is making mistakes in Nahu. It hurts me. Even the old women know their Nahu. Mauritania. Only basically in that area, in Mauritania, the people still look down on people who make mistakes in Nahu. And they know their Nahu. Even the old women know their Nahu. And normally the first teacher, the scholars from Mauritania say, your first teacher are the women. They teach you the basics of all of the sciences before you go to the men. Okay? They're the ones that teach you Quran. They teach you Hadith. They teach you Usool Al-Hadith. They teach you Usool Al-Fiqh. They teach you Nahu. They teach you all of these things before you pass on to the men. Now you've graduated. You go to the men. Then the men drill it into you. Like one Shaykh said, I learned Quran from my mother, and then to my father I read it to make it firm, the Quran. So sometimes I would be reading, I would make a mistake. What would he do? We were sitting on the bed, he'd push me off the bed onto the concrete floor. This is how my Quran became very firm. By crashing onto the floor over and over and over. Or he said I would fall asleep and he'd push me onto the floor while reciting. Okay, do that now and what happens? Child Protective Services will come to your door. What have you been doing? No, you're not supposed to beat your children, yes? Okay? Disclaimer, don't beat children. That was some time ago in places before. Now it doesn't work like that. Now children stand up to you and tell you, no, I'm not going to do it. And no matter, even if you were to do whatever you did to them, they still don't listen. Allah musta'an. Anyway. So then he says in the next couplet, فَالْأَصْلُ مَا عَلَيْهِ غَيْرُهُ يُبْنَى بُنِيَا فَالْأَصْلُ مَا عَلَيْهِ غَيْرُهُ بُنِيَا وَالْفَرْءُ مَا عَلَى سِوَاهُ يَنْبَنِي. Okay. So he's giving us the definition linguistically of al-asl. What is al-asl? Linguistically means that which something else is built upon. Huh? Something which, you don't need to give me a word. You just need to understand what it is. And the asl is something which other things are built upon. Yes? Origin, foundation, all of these are words for it. But the important thing is you understand the concept of what an asl is. Everything has an asl. Yes? What is your asl? Your parents. They are the asl and you are the fara. Yes? They are the origin. And you are the branch. Fara. Yes? So, the asl is anything other things are built upon. So the fara is, he says, the fara is that which is built upon other than itself. Other than it. It's built upon something else. The fara, the branch, is built upon something else. Yes? Why did he mention the fara? Do we care about the fara? Not really. But to make it more clear to us, to understand the meaning of asl. We'll understand it by its definition and by its opposite. These are two ways of us understanding of what is al-asl and what is al-fara. So he says, فَالْكِتَابُ وَالسُّنَّةُ أَصْل. The kitab and the sunnah are asl. They are the two asls. Or they are the asl. Because with regards ruling, the Quran and the sunnah are on the same level. Yes? Because you can't have the Quran without the sunnah. Yes? The Quran is explained by the sunnah. So with regards ruling, they're of the same level. With regards excellence and the reward, then they're different. Yes? Then they're different. The kitab is better and has more excellences and more reward connected to it than the sunnah. Yes? Because the Quran is the words of Allah Azza wa Jal. Whereas the sunnah are the words of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, except for Hadith Qudsi. Yeah? We give the exception of Hadith Qudsi. What's Hadith Qudsi? Yes, it's from Allah. It's when the Prophet ﷺ says, Allah says. Yeah? These are, I'll just give you one opinion, the correct opinion, according to me. It has no weight, but according to me, the correct opinion is that, and it's the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah, that when the Prophet ﷺ says, Allah actually said it. Because otherwise the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't be saying Allah says. And it wouldn't be true. And the Prophet ﷺ is truthful. So when he says Allah says, then Allah must have said these exact words. Because if you say Allah said and Allah didn't say the exact words, then you're still not telling the truth. Yes? When I say Dr. Jamil said, yes, and then I give his words, the meaning of his words, then I'm not really being truthful. I'm just giving the intent of what he said. I should say, paraphrasing Dr. Jamil, yes? The Prophet ﷺ says, Allah said. Okay? So they are the words of Allah, but they're not Quran. Allah doesn't challenge the kuffar by them. And they're not to be recited in the prayer. And they don't have the rewards connected to recitation of the Quran. Okay? That's the difference between them and the Quran. The Quran, what? Allah challenges the kuffar by it. Yes? The Quran is recited in the prayers. And the Quran, there's a specific reward connected to reciting it. These are not found in Hadith Qudsi. There's a difference between Hadith Qudsi and the Quran. But both are the words of Allah. Both are the words of Allah. Okay. Again, why was I talking about that? Yeah, the Kitab and Sunnah are the Asl.
And the Kitab and Sunnah on the same level.
And they are of the same level with regards to rulings. You will find when the scholars talk about rulings and they're giving rulings, they'll say the ruling of this is based upon the Asl from the Book of Allah. Or based upon the Asl from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And then they'll give you the ayah or they'll give you the hadith. So they will use that ayah or that hadith as the Asl. Because the Quran is the Asl and the Sunnah is the Asl. Okay? These are the evidences. The evidences are the Asl. What did we say Al-Asl is? Linguistically, that which? Okay. This verse of the Quran, we build upon it a ruling. Yes? That's why it's the Asl. Yes? We take this verse and then we build upon it a ruling. That this thing is haram, based upon this verse. Yes? Or this thing is halal, based upon this verse. لا تقربوا الزنا. لا تقربوا الزنا. Yeah? Or لا تقربوا الفواحش. Okay? Okay? Based upon this verse, we build that zina is haram. That's our ruling. Yes? The asl of that ruling is this verse. This is the asl. We're building upon it the ruling haram. Yes? وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. Establish the prayer. The ruling that, this is the asl. The ruling that we're basing upon it is Salah is obligatory. Okay? This is the asl and this is the ruling. The Shaykh gives an example. فأساس الجدار مثلا أصل لأنه يبنى عليه غيره. The foundations of a wall are its asl. Because the rest of the wall is built upon it. The foundations of the masjid is the asl of the masjid. You have to dig deep down. And then you can build up after you've done the foundation. Yes? That is the asl. Without that, you couldn't build the house. What would happen if you built something without a foundation? The wind will come and fall down. But it's the asl that holds it. The asl holds the ruling. Okay? Allah describes asl in the Quran. Jidhu shajara, asl. He says the trunk of a tree is the asl of the tree, all the way down to its root. The trunk plus its roots are the asl of the tree. The branches are its branches, and the leaves and the dates and all of that are additionals. They are built upon that the branch and the roots. Yes? Allah says, أَصْلُهَا ثَابِت. Its foundation, it's firm. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. And its branches, that which is built upon it, reach into the heavens. And this is talking about what? Huh? It's talking about La ilaha illallah. It's talking about La ilaha illallah. That it is the asl of everything else. All of the good that you do, all of the ibadah and everything you do comes from that asl. La ilaha illallah. So, and it must give its fruits. It must. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. The one who says he has La ilaha illallah but has no fruits, in reality there is no La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah has to give fruit. Even if it's simple fruit. Something simple. It has to give. It has to give something from the obligation. And many of the scholars say that it must be the salah. It must pray. Yes? Without the prayer, the person doesn't have La ilaha illallah. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Yes.
Is it like a specific, or does it just mean any good action that comes out of or is it like 5 pillars?
Here it's talking about all the things that come from La ilaha illallah. If it's strong, if La ilaha illallah is strong, it will produce many branches. And they will, because it's strong, the branches will reach into the heavens. There'll be so much, so great. If it's not so strong, but it still exists, it will give something. And we mentioned the scholars, they say salah. The salah must be there. Or they say one of the 4 pillars must be there. One of the 4 pillars must be there for them to have La ilaha illallah. Okay. Then he says, the next bit he says, وَالْفِقْهُ عِلْمُ كُلِّ حُكْمٍ شَرْعِي جاء اجتهادا دون حكم قطعي. Okay, excellent. Fiqh is every knowledge, الفقه علم كل حكم شرعي is the knowledge of every shar'i ruling which came by way of ijtihad. Which came by way of ijtihad. What's ijtihad? By trying your best. Striving to come to the correct opinion. دون القطع, دون حكم قطعي, without it being a certain ruling, meaning that it is the only possible ruling. حكم قطعي. No, حكم ظني and حكم قطعي. قطعي means there's no doubt, there's no room, there's no other opinions. Yes, no possible opinion. It's only one way. Whereas dhanni, or not qat'i, where there's more opinions, there's difference of opinion. It's possible to go this way or that way. Yeah? Then the Shaykh decides to explain what is fiqh. Fiqh fi al-lugha al-fahm is, as Fahad said, understanding. Some say fahmun daqiq. They say daqiq, what's that daqiq? Precise knowledge. Precise knowledge, yes. Yeah, ijtihadan. Without it being a hukm qat'i.
So does that mean every ruling is not certain?
No. It's saying the fiqh itself is where there's differences of opinion. Yes? Whereas hukm qat'i, you don't have the right to deal with it. It's already been decided. Yes? That's not fiqh. It's already been, Allah decided it. It's over with. You have no say. Whereas fiqh, he's saying, is where you have to use your effort to understand and come to the ruling. Okay? That is fiqh. You can't do that in those rulings because they've already been decided. The Shaykh will make it clearer, inshallah. Okay? So he says, Allah says, قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول. They said to Shu'aib, when Shu'aib alayhi salam gave da'wah to his people, they said, O Shu'aib, we don't nafqahu. A lot of what you say. We don't have fiqh of a lot of what you say. Meaning, we don't understand a lot of what you're saying. أي ما نفهمه. Meaning, we don't understand it. وقوله تعالى وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم. Nothing in the nothing. There is nothing except that it makes it glorifies the praises of Allah, but you don't have fiqh of it. Meaning you don't understand how they praise Allah. Everything in the heavens and the earth glorifies Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? However, we don't understand how they glorify Allah. It's beyond our comprehension. How they glorify Allah. Just think about that for a minute. How many things are there in Allah's universe? Okay? You don't know. Each one of them glorifies Allah, praises Allah. But we don't understand. This universe is full of Allah's glorification and of Allah's praise. Just that we don't understand it, we don't hear it. If we could hear it, it would be deafening. If we could hear it, it would be deafening. Our own selves, our inside, outside, they are things, yes? Our blood, the cells, they are glorifying Allah. They are glorifying Allah. But we don't hear it. Just imagine if you could hear it. It's from Allah's mercy that we can't hear it. It would be deafening. We wouldn't be able to hear anything but the glorification and praise of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُ. Okay, meaning you don't understand. The Shaykh says you don't understand. And then he says, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِ اللَّهِ. Everything glorifies with the praise of Allah, but we don't understand that praise, that glorification of Allah. So that was linguistic meaning of fiqh. Technical meaning or shar'i meaning of fiqh. يقول علم كل حكم شرعي جاء اجتهاد دون حكم قطعي. Meaning علم الحكم الشرعي. The knowledge, fiqh is the knowledge of the Islamic rulings built upon ijtihad and not upon certainty. Not upon certainty. لا على القطع. So they are the things where there is a possibility of another opinion on it. This is fiqh. This is a definition that is given by Jawaini and Al-Amrati. Amrati is just taking from Jawaini, yes, and just putting it into. So this is Jawaini's definition. There are other definitions as well. So then the Shaykh wants to explain this definition. So he says ilm. What is ilm? That's a big question. What is ilm? Huh? Ilm is action? No. Ilm is an action. You have to have action with ilm. Otherwise, the ilm is of no use. What is ilm? If somebody asks you to define ilm. No, that's a translation. Define knowledge. Define information. I didn't need to define it.
If they see something upon its reality, correct perception.
Yes, that's what they say. To perceive something. Say again.
To perceive something upon its reality, a correct perception.
Yes, that's what knowledge. That's what they say. It's not very good. Yes, but that's what they say. or it's to take that which Ibn Qayyim says, to take that which is outside and internalize it. That is knowledge. You take the outside, things that you know that are outside, and you internalize them. This is knowledge. This is according to Ibn Qayyim. But the best definition of knowledge is knowledge. It's like, define for me water. It doesn't need a definition. The word itself is the best definition of it. Everybody knows what knowledge is. Okay? And the more you try and define it, the further you go from its meaning. Yes? And this was the problem with the philosophers. They wanted to define us to death. Define everything. To the point that you get the actual thing you're trying to define. But you can never get it. Okay? So the best definition is ilm. Or by its opposite, jahl. خرج به جهل. When we say ilm, so it's not jahl. It's not ignorance. Ilm is the opposite of ignorance. علم معروف أو علم غير معروف علم منكر. Some things that you know could be bad for you, yes. But the knowledge itself is neither good or bad. Really. The knowledge knowledge of Allah is good. Yes. But other knowledge generally even it can be good or bad depending how they're used. Yes. Depending how they're used, it can be good or bad. Just like certain tools are neither good or bad. But how they're used, they can be good or bad. Yes? What is that? فَالْجَاهِلُ لَيْسَ بِفَقِيهٍ. So the one who is ignorant can never be a faqih. Can never be a faqih. But the problem is there's too many fuqaha or juhal. Too many of them. Everybody thinks he's a faqih. If only he would realize he's jahil. If only he knew his own place, everything would be okay. Allah understand, what can we do? Then he says, وَقَوْلُ كُلِّ حُكْمٍ شَرْعِي. So it's every Islamic ruling. Yes? That means that it is not rulings or principles which are not Islamic. Because you can have rulings or principles which are mental or intellectual principles and rulings. That, like what? 2 halves make 1. 2 halves make 1. Yes? Is that a Shari'i ruling? No, it's an intellectual ruling, mathematical ruling. Okay? And such. وَالْحُكْمُ الْحِسِّي, or a physical ruling. That this is hard. How do I know this is hard? By touching it. Yes? Is this a Shari'i ruling? No, the Sharia has nothing to do with it. وَالْحُكْمُ الْعُرْفِي أو الْعَادِي, or a customary ruling. In the customs, they refer to ad-dabba as one of the 4 animals which are cattle, 4 cattle. The cow, the sheep, what else is it? The goat and the camel. I think those 4 are dabba. But dabba literally means anything which steps on the earth. So we, or walks on the earth, we are dabba. Linguistically, we are dabba. But that's not what the word means anymore. It means those cattle. So if somebody calls you a dabba, he's insulting you. Don't accept it. Okay? So he says, فَهَذَا لَا تَدْخُلْ فِي الْفِقْهِ. So all of these rulings don't enter into fiqh. Only Islamic rulings. With regards to technical sense. Yeah? وَإِنْ كَانَ فِقْهًا فِي اللُّغَةِ. Even though they enter into the meaning of fiqh in the language. Linguistically, they are from fiqh. Because fiqh is any understanding linguistically. And physical or mental or customary are all types of understandings. Yes? So linguistically they are all fiqh. But technically they are not fiqh. Yes? So he gives the same example. Al-juzu ba'd al-kull. That a part is a part of something is a part. A part is a part of the whole. A part is a part of the whole. I can't think of another word for part. Anyway. Again, what type of hukm is this? Huh? Intellectual, logical. Huh? وقولنا أكل eating something, I don't know what this is, sana, causes problems in the stomach. Eating certain foods will cause problems in the stomach. Is this fiqh? Islamic fiqh? What is this? Huh? Nutrition, yes, okay. It's a physical ruling, yeah? That I eat this food, it causes me problems. So stop eating that food. But I like it. Okay? He says, وَقَوْلُنَا وُجُودُ السَّيَّارَةِ الْأَمِيرِ عند الباب تدل على وجود الأمير. Okay? I don't know why he says this. But the car of the prince at the door tells me that the prince is present. So his car hasn't moved from the place he parked it. That means he's still here. What type of ruling is that? Huh? Common sense? He says it's common sense as urfi, customary, that people when they leave their cars, they're still present. Yeah, just generally. They don't leave their car and wander off far away, go somewhere else, take a bus or something, and go somewhere else. They're generally around their car. Yeah? Generally. It's possible. Now some people, like if they're going somewhere, like Dr. Jamil leaves his car somewhere and then goes and then comes back and picks it up, yes? When you go to Holland. Yeah? So that's possible, but that's not the norm. Yes? That's why he's saying urfi. Sorry, Dr. Jamil, I'm using as an example. So here, these are all fiqh linguistically, but not fiqh technically. So he's saying, then he says, جاء اجتهادا. Yeah? Meaning they're all based upon ijtihad. And hence, based upon his statement that any yaqeen, anything which is certain, is not from fiqh. And the Shaykh says this is his opinion. Which means, when he says, فإن كان يقينا فإنه على رأي المؤلف لا يسمى فقها. That if the matter is certain, and there's no ijtihad in it, then according to the author, you don't call it fiqh. That means he doesn't agree. When he says this, it means he doesn't agree. If he agreed, he would say it. He would say, then fiqh is not this. He wouldn't say according to the author. So he says, as a counter-argument now. He hasn't said the Shaykh is wrong, yes? But he's going to counter-argument his definition. So he says, فَالْعِلْمُ بِوُجُوبِ الصَّلَاةِ. The knowledge of that the prayer is obligatory, based upon the author's opinion, is not from fiqh. Why? Because there's no اختلاف العلماء. Is the prayer obligatory or not obligatory? It's obligatory. One opinion, it's certain. It's established. So according to the Imam, this is not fiqh. Yes? لأنه قطعي, because it is certain. لا يحتاج إلى اجتهاد. It doesn't need any ijtihad. Now he's going to say he's wrong. وقال بعض العلماء رحمهم الله وهو الصحيح. And some of the scholars said, may Allah have mercy upon them, and this is the correct opinion. إن الفقه في الشرع, fiqh in the Sharia is هو معرفة الأحكام العملية التكليفية دون غيرها من الأحكام. Okay. that fiqh is knowledge of the rulings, the practical, what's taklifiyah? No, it's not difficulties. The practical injunctions upon a person, and not other rulings. So it's the knowledge of the rulings, the practical injunctions upon the person, and not any other rulings. Okay? Like the rulings in Aqidah. The rulings in Aqidah, the principles of Aqidah. Yes? Here they're not practical, they're not things that you're doing practically. They are beliefs that you hold. Yeah. Or anything else, like he says, wal badaniya, or body rulings of the body, like medical rulings for your body. These are all rulings as well. There's other rulings, but the rulings we want are rulings of taklif, of injunctions, and not just physical things that you're doing, but rulings which are injunctions, which are which are practical and are upon you. فهذا هو الفقه. This is fiqh. And then he gives the definition again. معرفة الأحكام العملية التكليفية. Knowing the ruling, practical injunction rulings. And this is the ruling in technical ruling. And this is what the majority of the ulama give in there when they define fiqh. Some add to it that they are rulings which are detailed rulings. So they add the word detail, in detail. So you know the rulings which are injunctions upon you, and you know them, and they're practical, and you know them in detail. That is fiqh. Not that you know them in general terms. You know the details of how to make wudu. You know the details of how to take ghusl. You know the details of the salah. Okay? Some of them add that. He says another definition is هو معرفة الأحكام الشرعية المتعلقة بأفعال المكلفين. That's a nice one. It's a knowledge of the Islamic rulings connected to the actions of the people, of those who are mukallaf, those who have to do things. Yes, because mukallaf is not just insan. The jinn as well are mukallafin. Yes. So the mukallaf incorporates man and jinn. Okay. This is a nicer, easier to translate definition. It means the same as the first one. Okay. There's no real difference between the first and the second. So he says, based upon these two definitions, the last ones, then the qat'iyya, the certain rulings which are uncertain, like as-salah is wajib, come within fiqh. Come within fiqh. Yes? So he says, so the knowledge of that salah is obligatory, and zakah is obligatory, and hajj is obligatory, and siyam is obligatory, based upon this ruling are fiqh. Whereas based upon this definition, they are fiqh. Whereas based upon the definition of the Imam, of Jawaini or of Amriti, they are not fiqh. Remember. Because he took out those which are qat'i. But we're saying that his ruling is not correct. Or his definition, not ruling. His definition is not correct. The second one is the more correct definition. Is the definition which basically everybody used after. Then he says, فَالْعِلْمِ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ وَاحِدٌ هذا يدخل في العقائد. The knowledge that Allah is one, is this from fiqh? Is this from fiqh technically? No. Because it's not practical and there's no injunctions here. And it's not connected to the actions of the mukallifin. It's connected to beliefs. Okay? هذا يدخل في العقائد. This enters into the beliefs. فليس فقها في الاصطلاح وصول الفقه. So it's not fiqh with regards to the technical definition of usul al-fiqh. لكنه في الشريعة فقه. But in the general sense of the sharia, it is fiqh. Yes? It is fiqh al-akbar, as Abu Hanifa called it. At-Tawheed, huwa al-fiqh al-akbar, is the greatest fiqh. And all the other things, the fiqh that we study, these are the lesser fiqh. So the whole of the Sharia, everything in it is fiqh. But you have fiqh akbar and fiqh asghar. Fiqh akbar is the aqidah. Knowledge of Allah and all the beliefs, what we need to know, this is fiqh al-akbar. Then fiqh al-akbar, fiqh al-asghar is all these other rulings of the practical side. This is fiqh al-asghar. He says, بل هو أعظم الفقه, but it is the greatest of fiqh. And that's why some of the scholars, Abu Hanifa, called it fiqh al-akbar. وما يتعلق بأفعال المكلفين سماه فقه الأصغر. And Abu Hanifa called the fiqh that we study as fiqh al-asghar. And Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah is agreeing with Abu Hanifa. Agreeing with Abu Hanifa with regards to this, that aqidah is deserving of being called fiqh al-akbar. Because without it, everything else is invalid. So even if you know how to make wudu and salah and siyam and hajj, but you don't have aqidah, you don't have the belief in Allah Azza wa Jalla, there's of no benefit. A kafir could learn all of that, yes? Could learn all the rulings and can regurgitate them back to you. But of what benefit is it? Nothing. If he prayed 1,000,000 times, his prayer wouldn't be accepted until he believes. Some disbelievers, they fast in Ramadan. Yeah? They spend their time and they don't eat and they don't drink and they take all that time and it's of no benefit to them. In the akhirah, what will they get from it? Nothing. Because there's no fiqh al-akbar, there's no iman in Allah Azza wa Jal. It may lead them to iman eventually, but while they're kuffar, it's not accepted of them. So the Shaykh says, based upon this, then the certain rulings which are certain, according to the author's opinion, are they fiqh or not? They're not fiqh. According to the correct opinion, are they fiqh or not? Then he gives an issue. Should we stop there? When he says mas'ala. We have 20 minutes, or do you want to carry on? Or you guys had enough? Huh? Yeah, that's enough. Alright, we'll stop there, inshallah. Mas'ala. We'll carry on from there next week. Bi-idhnillah. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wallahu a'lam. You think this is going to be hard?